Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Rachel Wild, a life coach and tarot reader. Today I'm wearing my red robe in honor of my period. That's right, I'm on my period right now. And I felt like I really wanted to share today some things that I've learned personally along my journey as a woman on how I have been able to actually overcome a lot of the period symptoms that I once felt, overwhelming cramping, right? Bloating and just body pain in different ways. So I want to talk to you guys today about how I actually went from, having those really bad period symptoms a long time ago to totally transforming my period experience into one that is soothing, calming, relaxing, and is actually a more pleasurable experience than what I was experiencing before. Okay, so I want to tell you a little bit first about what kinds of things I would experience when I was having these symptoms a long time ago, right? I would get very, very severe cramping in my abdominals for really, 3 to 5 days. I was a young woman for some reason who was having periods twice a month, right? I would get them every about 20 to 21 days. So every month, I would be on my period 2 times. And so I was experiencing periods pretty frequently, right? And I was having these very severe cramps. I would get very intense migraines as well. I would feel bloating. I would feel just overall very tired, very weak, right? I would actually also feel lightheaded at times, dizzy. Sometimes I would get really thirsty for no apparent reason, and I wouldn't be able to quench my thirst. There were actually a couple of instances where my period caused me to actually faint, right? I passed out. And some of these things could be because of a deficiency in iron. But I was at the point where I had been diagnosed with an iron deficiency, and I had taken iron supplements and eaten specific foods in particular to raise my iron levels. So when these symptoms occurred, I knew that my iron levels were where they should be now because I had already taken care of that. So I just got to a point where, let me just say this really quick. Those are the physical symptoms, right? I would also experience emotional symptoms, right? A lot of us refer to as PMS, where I would feel moody for no apparent reason. I would cry. I would get so upset. I would get angry. I would get depressed. I would experience a lot more highs and lows. My emotions just fluctuating up and down a lot. And so, when I was in my early 20s and I was going to university, that is the time when I really, asked the universe, what can I do to feel better, right? Like, I started to realize that I didn't have to believe that periods always had to be this way. And so I asked for some help. I just put it out there into my reality. I just stated that I was ready to see a new way. I was ready to uncover the path of being able to experience my periods in a much lighter feeling, even enjoyable kind of way. So I have to tell you, the very first thing I did was I freed my vagina. And what that meant for me was I stopped using tampons. And I would use maxi pads, or if I was at home, I would just use what I called my blood towel. And it was a red towel. I had a couple of these that I would switch out. But I would literally just lay around naked. Maybe I was wearing a shirt, maybe not, but I would just lay around and let myself bleed on this towel. There is nothing plugging me up. There was nothing restricting my natural flow, right? And so it felt really freeing, really liberating to do this. And I immediately noticed the reduction in cramping and bloating. I did not experience that as much. I did experience some when I first started this, and it actually decreased over time to where I never experienced cramping on my periods now, really ever. And it's been years now that this has been my experience. So I stopped using tampons in conjunction with not using any medicine to treat the symptoms. See, I had gotten into this cycle of using tampons that would cause me to feel excruciating cramping, and I would take Midol for it, right? Or there's some kind of like ibuprofen thing if Midol wasn't in my house for whatever reason. So I got into this cycle of using a product that caused me pain and then using another product to kind of numb that pain out so I wouldn't have to feel it. Even though it really wasn't treating what was going on. You know, if I was out of the house and I didn't have Midol with me, it was a painful experience. And it got to the point where, yes, Midol was helping a little bit, but after taking it for a long time, it really wasn't doing the job that it had first done when I started. So I said to myself, you're just going to stop using this medicine. And what I started noticing on my periods, as I was letting myself bleed freely, not using tampons anymore, and not taking Midol, yes, I had to be very present with those crampings that I did have in the first few periods when I started doing this, where I had to be there with it and I had to feel it. But I noticed that as each subsequent period would come into my life, the pain lessened and lessened and lessened. Okay, so I think that there is something there with being with the feelings of the pain and the discomfort. See, for a long time for me, I was trying to shove it into a corner. I was trying not to feel it, right, by taking the medicine to relieve these painful symptoms. But when I actually sat with the discomfort in combination with taking the root cause of the discomfort away, then I started noticing the cramping would show up less and the pain would show up less. Now, I went on this journey, it took me, several months to a solid year to finally start coming into the experience of totally painless periods. Okay, so that was the main combination factor that really started transforming my relationship with my periods. Now, there were actually other things as well. During this time, that's what I was doing physically to support the change. What I was doing mentally to support the change was creating a different relationship with my period and how I thought of it. See, a lot of us grew up in households where it was just automatically the belief that our periods were annoying, our periods were a nuisance, our periods were painful. How many times did we complain about our periods growing up? Maybe with our mom, maybe with our sisters, maybe with our aunts, and even when we went to school, right? Our peers at school, all of our friends. I can remember growing up and as a way of bonding with each other, we would all talk about our periods, but we would all do it in this very complaining, negative way, like, oh, I hate my periods. Oh, I wish I was a man and I never had to experience this, right? Oh, I just, my periods are so painful. My periods do this to me and that to me and all these negative things, right? And so we have to recognize, and this is what I had to see, my period is a very real part of me as a woman and who I am. So when I said that I hated my periods, I was really saying that I hated a part of myself. And it was a big part of myself, right? I mean, it's the part of myself that, is a big factor of me being a woman, right? I mean, having a period tells me that my body is working normally, right? That I'm fertile, that everything is working as it should, that I'm healthy, that I have the amazing ability to give birth into this world, right? The period cycle itself is a beautiful example of how a woman illustrates in nature these cyclical cycles and seasons of our life, right? As women, we have this potential to be really tapped in to nature simply by connecting with our natural cycle, right? It's very similar to the moon phases, you see. And so when you tap in to your cycle, you can actually use it in a very powerful way in your life. You start realizing that there are times in my cycle, just as the moon phases come, right, where, I'm a really powerful planner. I'm a really powerful organizer. I'm a really powerful creator of inspired ideas, right, at certain times of our cycle. And then other times of our cycle, we're a really powerful action taker, and we take those ideas into our reality. And we're very powerful in creating physical experiences in our reality that manifest and bring into fruition, that which we have planned and organized and had ideas about, right? And so you can tap into all of this by tapping into your natural cycle, by honoring the part in your cycle that you're at in any given moment. So for me, it was really starting to honor my period for me as a beautiful opportunity to rest. And it was around the same time that when I was attending university, sometimes I would read the scientific journals just for the fun of it because we had access to them, right? So it would be cool just to see what's going on in the scientific community. And one day I stumbled upon an article that was talking about, in Seattle a long time ago, indigenous tribes. In those tribes, the women would create these moon lodges, and every period cycle, and because these women were living together, and it's a well-known fact that as women spend time together in groups, they become on the same cycle together. They sync up with each other. So the women in this tribe, they would all, on their cycles, they would travel off to their moon lodge where they would take time to rest, and they would take time to have a space where they could bleed and free flow. And not only that, but here's the very rich part of it as well. It was a time for them to commune with each other and fellowship as women and go and have this time together where they were caring for their bodies, right? And they were also caring for their emotional and mental well-beings by connecting with each other, right? So they would go off and they would have these rich experiences, and they would totally leave the world of men for a while, and they would do this. And I thought, how profound is that? To totally take time off. See, I know a lot of us, around the whole world, especially in the United States and the Western world, we live on these regimented schedules of 9 to 5, and that's just your job, every day, 5 days out of the week, 4 weeks out of the month, right? And so when we come into our cycles, the time in our life where we are experiencing our periods, we still have to go to work, right? And pretend that everything is okay and that we can still work and perform, to the capacity that we did a couple weeks ago, right? And we're shoving tampons into our vaginas, and we are taking Midol so that we don't have to feel the pain, and we wish that our periods would go away so that we could work to our maximum potential. And it's a process that I've certainly been in as well, of just not honoring my body. And when we don't honor our bodies get very angry with us and start to wreak havoc on itself in a way, because every time we experience a painful thing in our body, some kind of ailment, some kind of disease, some kind of illness, it is our body wanting us to bring attention to something that we are not aware of. And so every time something like that happens, our body is speaking to us, and there is a message that it wants to give to us. And if we ask for what that message is, we will receive that answer, right? And so for me, these painful period symptoms I was experiencing was signals to me, messages that I wasn't honoring my body in the way that my body knew it deserved to be honored. And that's when I went through this powerful transformation. So I had to, like I said, make physical changes to support myself during my period. And I made mental changes by telling myself a different story about my period, that I was grateful for it being there, that it meant I was healthy, that I loved my period, that I loved being a woman. I loved this part of me. I loved being a fertile being who could bring life into the world. That is so powerful, right? I started getting in sync with my cycles and using the time of my period for a powerful time of resting and reorganizing, right, and planning, things like that. And I would use, I would come out of my period with such a profound, energizing state of being, because I had taken that time to rest, that I was super effective in the world by just maneuvering my energy to support myself through the natural cycles that I was experiencing. Okay, so another thing is I supported myself emotionally through this by, first of all, on my own, creating powerful rituals around my period. So yes, I had my ritual of the blood towel, and yes, I was bleeding freely and all of this, but I started making other rituals too. And I'll be very transparent with you and tell you one of them was that I stopped shaving my downstairs area when I was on my period, just because it felt good to me, just because when I end my cycle, I like to close it out with a clearing away. And shaving for me does that, right? So I shave when I'm done with it. Also, it's more of a comfort thing too, since I'm wearing pads. It's not rubbing up against newly shaved skin, and so it's not causing me discomfort. And also, I like the idea of, since I'm free-flowing my blood, right? I like the idea of my hair growing out for a little bit during that time. And then when my period ends, I close out my cycle with a nice shave, and then I feel, fresh and new, as my period ends and a different part of my cycle begins. So that's something I do. But during my period, I would also take these ritual baths, right, at the beginning of my period. So I had a way that I was beginning it, and I would do up the bathroom with essential oils, and I would light candles around, and I would fill up the water with nice warm bubble bath water, and I would lock the door on that bathroom. It was a time for no partner, no kids. It was a time for me to really enjoy just the richness of this cave in a way. I felt like it was my moon lodge a little bit, right? Because I was just getting away from everybody, and I was creating this luxuriously feeling experience for me, right? So it was so beautiful. Every time my period would onset, I would give myself this luxurious experience. And I might choose to do it every day, or I might choose to do it every other day, or a couple of times at the beginning. But I would always have this bath. And I just felt like it supported me so much. And in the beginning days, when I was still having those painful cramps a little bit, right, as they were decreasing over time, the warm water was such a great natural remedy for those cramps that I was still experiencing a little bit at the time. So instead of taking Midol, that was a great substitute. Just experiencing that warm water is a great natural way that you can take care of those cramps, and it feels better, right? And I would enjoy smelling these essential oils. I would rub peppermint oil if I was having maybe some lower back symptoms. I'd rub some peppermint and lavender oil into my lower back. That is such a great muscle relaxer. I've even done that when I've just had neck or shoulder tightness, which might onset for you during your cycle, during your period time, if that's something that happens for you. But putting topical treatments on is so great as well. And then I would end my bath with rubbing coconut oil all over my body, and all of this was done very slowly. I might bring even a cup of tea in there. I would listen to some relaxing music. I would just have this amazing experience to kick off my period, right? So it was something that I could look forward to. Another tip that really helps you when you're dealing with these cramps naturally is drinking a lot of water. And something I realized was when I was wearing tampons, that was what was causing me to randomly feel really thirsty. And when I stopped those, I didn't feel such a thirst that I couldn't quench anymore. And I did realize that drinking so much water during my period helped me just feel overall better, and it really helped my cramps as well. So that's another tip. But yeah, so I was dealing with the emotional part by getting in front of any weird moodiness, any feelings of upset, right? Things like that, by giving myself an incredibly pleasurable, enjoyable, luxurious, rich experience that just made me happy, right? Made me feel more calm and peaceful and things like that. Now, of course, there's times where I might feel a little bit sad or a little bit, I say moody, the word moody. And when that does come up for me, I do realize that it is okay. Remember, when you experience emotional pain, just like physical pain, your body, your energy is speaking to you. So there's something there for you to see, there's something for you to feel, and you can always say thank you to yourself for allowing yourself to bring that emotion up for you to experience and release. It could be something that maybe you were holding on to for a long time that you were not aware of. And, like I said, as we go through this tremendous transformation with our periods, there are a lot of emotions that come up to the surface to experience. And just know that it is okay, because often we've been pushing them aside, right? So it's okay to feel them. And, if you do feel sad and you want to cry, that's great, that's fine. And know that as you experience these feelings and release them, that subsequent periods that you go through, you're not going to have as much emotional turmoil as you feel it, as you move through it, as you experience it, as you choose to face it and deal with it and accept it and let it go. Okay, so incredibly emotionally healing as well. My hand is getting so sleepy from resting on it, so feeling so tingly. I'm gonna wrap this video up here soon. I just wanted to give you all my best tips, strategies, what I've done personally that has completely transformed my relationship with my period. I thought, it's so important, all of this that I've learned, I'm going to get on here today and I'm going to share with you all, the incredible potential that you have right now to begin the process of transforming your period experience in your life. I'll say one more thing before I go, and that's about opening up about your period experiences with other women and connecting in more powerful ways. So just like the women who would go to the Moon Lodge and fellowship, I began to speak about my period differently with the women that I knew. When my sister got her first period, I went over there and I celebrated with my grandmother and my sister. I bought red velvet cupcakes, and it was this great celebration that we had together where we talked about it in positive ways. We talked about the gift that it was to experience this and come into it, because I have to tell you, when I first came into my period, I was living with my great aunt and uncle at the time, and it happened to me during my sleep, and I woke up and I had bled, and I went upstairs and I told her, my aunt, I bled last night. I started my period. And her response was to roll her eyes and say, "Oh, great," and then she, shoved these pads at me. I actually started out using pads and then I got into tampons. But, that was basically it. And it was more about, I think she said something to me like, she said, "It's more important now than ever to be modest and be pure," right? And so there were, those are a lot of underlying negative emotions, really. I didn't feel like I was ushered into womanhood with a celebration that it really should be, I believe, for every young woman. It was more of an inconvenience, and it was more of a fear-based, oh, now she could get pregnant kind of thing, which started to associate fertility to me with fear, right? So it's super important. I believe the final message here is how we communicate about our periods together as women, and how us as mothers, how we choose to decide to bring our young girls into womanhood. And it could be a celebration, among family members and even close friends. It could be a Woman's Day. You could celebrate and just get together and talk positively about what a gift this is, because it truly, truly is a gift to experience our periods every month, to be women, to be fertile, to give the gift of life on this planet, to have the potential for that, and to know that when we have periods, our body is healthy. It's working exactly as it should, and that's something to be grateful and thankful for. Okay, everyone, that's everything I have to share with you on this topic that I am so passionate about and is so close to my heart, because I think a lot of women and young girls struggle and feel pain and discomfort when they don't really need to. It doesn't have to be that way. And so we can create a world where women celebrate their periods and celebrate themselves. And that's what this video is about today. So share this video if you believe in this message and you believe that this message really needs spread to all of the women and girls around the world, so we can totally transform this paradigm in which we've been living. Share it on your social media pages. Show it to your friends and your mothers and your sisters and your daughters, and let's all come into a new way of experiencing this together, a way that brings love into ourselves and love to those around us. Okay, everybody, I'm Rachel Wild. If you have any more questions on this topic and want to reach out to me and book a coaching session, or you would like somebody to be a mentor to support you during your own period transformation, if you would like help coming up with a period transformation plan and somebody who can help walk you through it and be there with you along the way, please reach out to me. I would love to help you. Of course, when you're ready and the time is right for you, and it's something that you feel like you're excited about and happy to move forward with in your life. Okay, everyone, I hope you have a splendid day, and I will see you next time. Subscribe to see more from me soon. I love you all. Bye.